Bizarre stories from the subscribers. Hello, Leo Augusto. My name is Samantha, and I'm 22 years old. It was a dark and cloudy afternoon when I was heading to my grandmother's grave in the heart of my city's old cemetery. I had promised her that I would visit her grave every year on her birthday, and today is the day. As I approached her grave, I was struck by a strange feeling of unease. The air was still, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I tried to ignore it and focus on leaving fresh flowers on my grandmother's grave as I was about to leave. I heard a faint tapping sound coming from inside the tomb. I froze. My heart started pounding hard. The beats kept getting louder and more persistent until they became unmistakable knocks against the stone walls of the tomb. I was paralyzed with fear, not knowing what to do. Part of me wanted to run, but the other part was drawn to the tomb, wanting to find out what was making that noise. I slowly approached the tomb and put my ear to the cold stone. I could hear a low, hoarse voice speaking in an unknown language. I recoiled in terror, my body trembling. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but the voice and the knocking continued. I felt trapped, with no escape from the horror that was unfolding. I took a deep breath and gathered the courage to look inside the tomb. The sight I saw was the worst thing I could ever imagine. In the dim light, I saw a twisted and decaying figure pounding on the walls of the tomb. I screamed and staggered back, stumbling over a nearby tombstone and hitting my head on a stone bench. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room with no memory of what had happened in the cemetery. But I will never forget the terror I felt at that moment and the knowledge that I had encountered something truly evil in that old cemetery. To this day, I avoid visiting my grandma's grave, unable to shake off that trauma, those knocks and frightening voices. This video is sponsored by Leo's store. Take a look there, they've got lots of comics for you. My name is Jorge Mora, and I've been a mechanic for over 15 years. I've always had a passion for cars and mechanics, and my workshop is my home. I had never come across a car as problematic as this one. However, I got it at an auction really cheap, thinking I could fix it up and sell it for a profit. But as I soon found out, this car was not like the others. From the very first day I got it, strange things started happening. The car seemed to have a will of its own and was somehow always involved in accidents. I thought it was just my imagination, but then I started hearing reports from other people about the same car. I started to get worried and decided to investigate its past. That's when I discovered that the car's previous owner was so possessive about the vehicle that he didn't allow anyone else to drive it. He was so obsessed that even after his death, he made sure no one else would drive his car. I didn't know how, but somehow the car was acting as if it was still under the control of its previous owner. I started having terrifying nightmares about the car's previous owner, and I couldn't explain why I was having these dreams. So one night, I decided to get in the car and drive for a few hours, hoping that this would help undo whatever was in that car. But as soon as I got in, things started to get even creepier. The car seemed to be taking control over me, man, and I couldn't stop it at all. I was driving at an insane speed, and the car was following a path different from the one I had planned. I couldn't control the steering wheel or the brakes. I was sure I was going to die right then, man. But then, suddenly, everything stopped. I found myself parked in front of an old cemetery, and I knew that's where the car's previous owner was buried. I don't know how, but I had been taken there by the car. There was a moment when I finally managed to open the door and get out, man. I just got out and ran home, leaving the car behind. The other day I was in front of my shop, having some water. That's when I saw that car driving down the street. When I looked inside, I saw something strange driving. After that day, I never saw that strange car again. Thank God. Hi, Leo Augusto. My name is Yasmin. And this story I'm about to tell you really happened. It was when I had just moved into a new house that my mother had rented so we could be closer to my school and her work. Every night, my mother used to tell me a bedtime story. I loved listening to it because it helped me fall asleep faster. And I slept like a rock. One night, while she was telling me a story, I interrupted her and told her I felt something rocking me as if I was being gently shaken. I said it was her doing it. Because it helps me fall asleep. So, alright. I don't remember when she finished the story because I must have dozed off. In the middle of the night, my mom always wakes up to make her milk, and she took the opportunity that day to check on me while I was sleeping. That's when she saw that I was rocking in bed, as if someone was gently rocking me. She got scared at first, but soon thought it was just me moving, an automatic reflex of the body, and let it go. The next morning, she told me this story and I got scared because in that house, an old lady had died who used to rock her little granddaughter to sleep. Another curious thing is that when I go to sleep, I always cover myself completely, but when I wake up, I'm already completely uncovered. Another night I woke up with the feeling that someone was covering me with a sheet, and when I looked, there was no one there. It was 3 in the morning. The next day, I asked my mom, and she said she wasn't the one who covered me that night. Ever since we moved, I've been sleeping deeply and always wake up covered. Could it be the ghost of the lady who used to live here? Showing up in the middle of the night to take care of me, telling me to go to sleep and covering me so I don't catch a chill. Hello Leo Augusto, my name is Igor and I'm 10 years old. I'm here to tell my scary story. When I was very little, my mom said I had an imaginary friend. She saw me talking to someone, but I don't remember any of that. She thought it was some kind of flying creature or something like that, since I was always looking up, I always thought it was strange, but on one specific day, when I was 7 years old, my parents put me to bed because I had school the next morning. I used to sleep in my bed, which was next to theirs, but that night they were still in the kitchen. I was almost asleep, but when I turned toward their bed, I saw a pale man, all white and covered in wounds, but suddenly he disappeared. I went to them in the kitchen and told them what happened, but they didn't believe what I said. I could barely sleep that night. The next morning, I went to get the towel from the clothesline in my backyard, when out of nowhere I feel a presence behind me.
When I look,
it's the same guy I saw the night before. But he was taller and had a knife in his hand, man. When I blinked, he disappeared. To this day, I'm afraid that crazy guy will show up again. From what I realized, that so-called imaginary friend of mine wasn't what I expected. At the time this story happened, I was about 8 years old. My parents decided to hire a babysitter to take care of me during the night they were going out for an important dinner. When the babysitter arrived, she seemed like the perfect choice. She had a sweet and gentle smile, and she carried with her an angelic aura. Her name was Christina. As soon as my parents left the house, Christina quickly sent me to my room and locked the door. I was scared, but she said it was for my safety. So I lay down on the bed and tried to relax, but soon I started hearing strange noises coming from the room. Next door, there were sounds of furniture being dragged and objects falling on the floor. I called the babysitter, right? But she wasn't answering me. I was starting to get scared of what was going on there, man. Her job was to watch over me, right? But what was she doing? Suddenly my bedroom door opened slowly. It was Christina, but she looked different now. Her eyes were black and lifeless, and her expression was cruel and dark. I backed away in terror as she came closer to me. And at that moment, man, she started whispering things in a language I had never heard before. I felt a sinister presence in her, man. My room started to turn into something different, bro. The walls took on an old and strange look. The floor was wet and the smell of mold was strong. I looked at Christina and she seemed like she wanted to devour me. Her mouth started to open. It seemed like it had no limits. With sharp claws and pointed teeth, she had me as her target. She started to move toward me and I tried to run, but the door was locked. I was terrified, feeling like I was living a nightmare. Leo Augusto. But suddenly the door was flung open with a bang and my parents entered the room. The sinister presence disappeared instantly, and Christina went back to being a gentle and sweet nanny like before. She was sitting with a children's book in her hand. My parents didn't see anything strange in that room, but I knew that something evil had been present there that night, and that the nanny I thought was good was actually a monster. Since then, I've never felt safe again. When my parents go out, I always insist on staying home alone. I tell them I'll just be sleeping. Thank God I've never seen that thing again, and I hope it stays that way. Hey Leo, my name is Gustavo and I'm 11 years old. This story happened about 3 years ago and it was creepy. I was at school in 3rd grade with my friends during recess. We were telling scary stories. That school always had a reputation for being haunted, and I was really scared of that place, man. But then we were telling stories
about horror.
until it was the turn of a kid who had been studying there since preschool to tell his story. He said that in 1st grade he was going to buy his snack when he came across a well in front of the cafeteria. He was confused because he didn't remember there being a well there. But anyway, he bought his snack and was heading back, right? Until he walked past the well and heard screams coming from inside. He said the screams sounded like they were from a girl about 6 years old or so. He stuck his head inside the well, but didn't see or hear anything. Anyway, he left, and that was the story he told, right? When I heard that, man, I started making fun of him because I thought the story was fake, you know?
He got annoyed with me and left. My other friends started laughing and making fun of him too, because they really thought something like that couldn't happen when it was time to leave, right?
I was leaving the classroom and I remembered that boy's story, the one he told about the well and all. So I decided to go to the cafeteria alone to check it out, man. When I got there, guess what I saw, Leo? The well? That's right! I got confused and went to look inside too, and there was nothing. No screams, nothing at all. I decided to turn around and get out of there. But when I turned, the screams started. It gave me chills down my spine, man, and I decided to run. But then I realized they had already closed the school gate. They left me inside, man. Everyone from the school had already left. I tried to find some staff member to open it for me, you know. But there was no one there, man. The shift was over. At that moment, the screams had already stopped, so I went back to the cafeteria, you know? And also looking for a way to escape. Until when I got back to the well again, I saw a child's hand holding on to the edge. It was the girl the boy told me about. I was sure now. She screamed again, and it was at that moment that my soul almost left my body. Leo. I quickly ran to the back of the school and jumped over a wall. Man, I got out of there. The next day, I told my classmates what I saw, but nobody believed me. They just laughed at me, just like last time with the boy. Looking at the place, the well was no longer there. My luck was that it was already the end of the year. After 2 weeks, I never had to go to that school again. Anyway, to this day, I never found out how that thing appeared. That well construction just disappeared out of nowhere, man. If anyone has any information about it or knows something, please let me know in the comments. Hello Leo, my name is Thomas. On the street where my school was, there was a boy named Lucas. But unlike most children, he didn't live in a house or an apartment. But instead, he lived in a manhole. No one knew how he ended up there. but he had been seen for the first time a few years ago, and since then he hadn't left there anymore. People said he was a strange boy with wide eyes and pale skin. Some even believed he had supernatural powers to survive in that place. Right, man. But regardless of what people thought, Lucas remained in the sewer, living in his own world, far from the noise of the city, embraced by darkness and the stench, right man, and even cheap rats and all that stuff. One day, a group of kids from my school decided to explore the sewer after class to see if there really was a boy living down there, man. They managed to get inside even though it was dark and narrow. They called out for Lucas, but got no answer. They kept shouting like crazy, man, and nothing. Then they heard a strange noise coming from the corner of the sewer, man. When they got closer, they saw something terrifying. It was a boy lying on the ground with his eyes rolled back and a dark liquid coming out of his mouth. They were sure it was Lucas. They thought he was dead. But suddenly, he got up and started chasing them, with a look of hatred on his face. The children ran away as fast as they could, but Lucas seemed to be everywhere. He would suddenly appear at every turn in the sewer. They screamed and ran, but he wouldn't stop chasing them. Suddenly, one of the children tripped and fell, old man. And before they could get up, Lucas grabbed them and dragged them away. The other children managed to get out alive, and that's why I know about this story, right, man? They told me about it. I wasn't there. No way, that's for sure. Lucas stayed in the sewer waiting for the next victim who dared to venture into his territory. No one knows for sure what happened to him, but people say he lives in the neighborhood sewers and that he can show up at any moment to grab someone who's not paying attention, man. Someone who's just hanging around. From that day on, the sewer became a forbidden and haunted place, and the school children never dared to go in there again. And even now, many years after this happened, people still talk about the boy who lived in the sewer and became a living nightmare. This video is brought to you by Leo's Store. Take a look there, they've got a lot of comics for you. Hi Leo Augusto, my name is Alice Manuela, and I have a really bizarre story to tell you. It started like this. One day I was in line at school waiting to go into the classroom with my classmates when we decided to go ahead and head to our room before the bell rang. Since the door was always open, we went in to leave our backpacks there. However, we saw that the inside was completely turned upside down. The chairs and desks, everything was on the floor. It looked like a hurricane had gone through and wrecked everything. That's when we looked to the corner of the room and saw an old man with torn clothes staring at us with a very angry face. We greeted him, but he didn't respond. He just kept staring at us at first. I felt like something was wrong because I had never seen him at the school before. Was he some kind of new employee who was there doing something? Then he came toward us, walking quickly, and soon he started running like a wild animal, trying to attack us. We screamed desperately. Me, Manu, and Agnes ran a lot and hid in the library. We held the door and soon we felt someone trying to open it. We stayed hidden for about 15 minutes. The teacher noticed that we weren't in the classroom and went to look for us until she called out our names. And we opened the door. We told her everything that happened. And the most surprising thing, Leo, listen now. She told us that man that we saw was a former school inspector who had died many years ago. He worked there until he was in his 90s. It was his entertainment to go to the school to work. She only believed what we told her because she said that this man had already appeared to her as well. Another bizarre fact is that the cemetery where he was buried was right next to our school, and he was probably still going there to work, right? But he ended up wrecking everything, breaking things and all that. Well, Leo Augusto, this story happened about 6 months ago, and since then, my friends and I have been living in fear. Agnes even changed schools because of this bizarre incident. Every Thursday I go to Mass to pray for the soul of the poor man so that he may find rest and not haunt anyone there anymore. Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm going to share with you a story that happened to me. When I was 6 years old, I lived only with my mother and my grandmother. I remember very well when my mother left for work and I stayed with my grandmother. She always made a delicious porridge for me, and then I would watch cartoons on television all morning. In the afternoon, my grandmother would make lunch, which was also really good. Always, when my mother came back from work, my grandmother would go home. That was our daily routine, and it went on like that for a long time. However, when I turned 8, something unexpected happened. I asked my mother if my grandmother wouldn't be coming to stay with me again that day, right? That's when my mom froze, man. And she told me that my grandmother had passed away a long time ago, and that I had never met her. I was extremely confused and started to question who the lady who had taken care of me all these years was then. My mom got nervous, man, sweating bullets, so she grabbed the old family albums so I could identify who had been staying with me, because according to her, I was alone. So I went to see if it was really her mother or my dad's. I started going through the photos, and suddenly I recognized the lady in the pictures as the same person who had taken care of me all those days, Mrs. Maria das Dores, who passed away in 1978 of natural causes. For some reason I don't know, she stopped coming to our house to stay with me while my mom worked. I don't know if it was because I grew up or if she needed to move on to another plane. All I know is that it was good to meet my grandma. My mom is still scared of this story, and every time she leaves for work, she wonders if her mother will come back. I hope you guys enjoyed this bizarre story from our subscribers, and if you want to send in a story to appear in this segment, just send it to this email right here, inscritosleo@gmail.com. Alright? I'm going to wrap it up here, alright? Bye.